All right, hey guys, coming at you today for chapter 22. I'm on page 397 for Trollbella, Queen of the Troblins. Or Troblins, I would say. Trolls, goblins. All right, a gentle swing stirred the twins to life. They opened their eyes and found themselves in a caged cart traveling down a long, dark tunnel, heading deeper and deeper underground. The cart was pulled by a donkey and steered by a short and fat troll with wide, bat-like ears. "About time you woke up," said the harp, and she rode in the same cart with the twins. "What happened?" Connor asked, rubbing his head. He and his sister were sore, bruised, and cut up a bit from the crash. "Our ship crashed, and we've been kidnapped by trolls and goblins," the harp said. "In other words, we're having a bad day." "We've been kidnapped by trolls?" Alex said. "No, this can't be happening again." "Where are the others?" Connor asked. "They're in the cart behind us," the harp said. "No one was seriously wounded, thank the heavens. Goldilocks dislocated her shoulder, but set it back in place. Red has a scratch on her cheek and has been crying about it for hours." That makes sense. The twins looked in the tunnel behind them. Jack, Goldilocks, Froggy, and Red were all squished together in a caged cart, being steered by a goblin. Goldilocks was clutching her wrist, testing her reflexes throughout her hand. Red was sobbing into Froggy's shoulder. She had a small scrape across her cheek, just below her left eye. "It's going to take weeks to heal," Red said. "I'm going to look like a peasant." "Where's the wand?" Alex whispered to the harp. The troll took everything of value and put it in there, the harp said, and pointed to a satchel that he wore around his shoulder. She could see Jack's axe, Goldilocks' sword, and the tip of the wand poking out from the top of it. "Are we going to be their slaves now?" Connor asked in a loud and frustrated voice so the troll would hear him. The troll let out a grumbling chuckle. "I wish," he growled. "We don't have slaves anymore. You lot are in for something much worse." Soon the carts were passing under a stone arch that the twins remembered from their last visit to the underground kingdom. The stone had two statues beneath it, one of a troll and one of a goblin, and in bold letters what used to say, "Be troll, be goblin, or be afraid." Now read, "Welcome, friends." The twins rubbed their eyes to make sure that they were working properly. "Huh?" Connor said. "Are you reading what I'm reading, or did I have a concussion?" They moved through the arc and down through a long stone tunnel. The twins expected to descend into a large, noisy common room where they visited before, but everything was completely different. Instead of being filled with hundreds of trolls and goblins, being served drinks and food of human slaves, or food by human slaves, that would have been bad, sorry. The room was completely still. All the stone tables and chairs had been removed, and trolls and goblins stood attentively in perfect lines. "That's odd," Connor said. "It's like they're at boot camp or something." The trolls and goblins faced the empty stone throne, all waiting for their leader's arrival. They weren't quite as ugly as the twins had remembered, and the smell of their poor hygiene wasn't as strong either. Had they finally learned to take care of themselves? The carts turned the corner and moved down another tunnel, headed for the dungeons, if the twins remembered properly. They were shocked to discover, holy buckets, guys, shocked to discover that the dungeons had changed too. The individual cells had been removed, and now there was just one big space for furniture and torches. A dozen or so humans mingled about the room. They weren't the frail, overworked slaves that the twins had seen the last time, but were more of a bored and restless group, yawning and twiddling their thumbs. The troll and the goblin pulled the twins and other captives out of the cart and pushed them into the room with the others. The carts drove off, taking the harp and the satchel with the wand of wonderment inside of them. "Don't let them take me away," the harp cried. "They're going to melt me and forge me into nose rings." Unfortunately, there was nothing they could do. A large gate shut behind the carts as the troll with the magic harp drove off. Jack, Goldilocks, Red, and Froggy, and the twins were all trapped with the others. "We have to get the harp and the wand back," Jack said. He put his hand to the gate door and shook it as hard as he could, but it didn't budge. The twins didn't look as nearly stressed as the rest of them. "Don't worry, if we can escape last time, then we can do it again," Connor said, again with a voice of optimism. "Things look so much more civilized in here now," Alex said. She walked up to a woman, politely tapped her on the shoulder. Excuse me, my name is Alex Bailey. Could you tell me what's going on here? I don't know what you're doing here, but I was kidnapped when I accidentally wandered into the Troll and Goblin Kingdom, she said. How long have you been a slave? Connor asked. Slave? Red said. Tears immediately came to her eyes. She was, sorry, I lost my place. She was so distraught by the scratch from her cheek that the reality of the situation hadn't fully sunk in. That makes sense. Royals can't be slaves. Why is my life a reverse Cinderella story? The woman gave them a more annoying, who was even more annoyed talking to them. I am not a slave, she said, insulted that they would even think such a thing. They just made us dance for the queen as punishment for being on their property without permission. They make you dance? Alex said she wasn't so sure that she had heard her correctly. The troll queen loves watching people dance, the woman said. So very exciting. So every evening after dinner, she makes her prisoners and her citizens watch or dance with each other. Excuse me? Did you say troll queen? Connor said. What happened to the kings? Don't ask me. I've only been here for a week, the woman said and walked off, obviously not wanting to be bothered with questions anymore. The twins looked around the room at the other prisoners. Alex? Connor? A voice said nearby. Sitting on the ground in the back of the room was the friendly face that the twins had never expected to see in a place like this. Dr. Bob? Alex gasped. Connor and Alex were in shock and couldn't move. Bob got to his feet and ran to the twins, giving them a very long, teary-eyed embrace. I thought I was seeing things, Bob said, but it's you. It's actually you. The twins' heads filled with so many questions they tried filtering them to the basics. Bob, what are you doing here? Connor asked. How did you get into the fairy tale world? Alex asked. Bob let out a lengthy sigh. I've had quite the adventure, he said. I was at the house when Mother Goose and the soldiers realized you were gone. The door disappeared out of thin air. It appeared into thin air and out of the living room, and your grandmother appeared. While Mother Goose was explaining what had happened, I slipped through the door and had been here ever since. Smart guy, right? How long have you been here? Alex asked. A week or so, I think. Maybe a day or two. I don't know. Bob said. Connor's eyebrows shot to the top of his forehead. You've been down in this dungeon for a week? He said. Oh no, I've been all over the fairy tale continent. Bob said. I've only been in the troll and goblin territory for a day or two. Alex happily clapped her hands together. So it was your ring that the sea witch was wearing, she said. Why were you with the sea witch, Bob? Connor asked. Bob looked back and forth between the twins, scared of just the sound of her name. What were you two doing with the sea witch? He asked. We're kind of trying to save the world. It's a long story. But how did you go from a rental house to the bottom of an enchanted ocean? Well, when I got to the fairy tale world, I started looking for you and your mother immediately, he said. I asked every villager, every farmer, and every creature I came across. No one knew who I was talking about, so I ended up getting lost in the woods. It was freezing, and there was snow on the ground. Sounds like the Northern Kingdom, Alex said. Please keep going. Like I said, it was freezing and became dark. Bob continued. A huge family of black bears surrounded me. I thought I was going to be eaten alive, but then the most amazing thing happened. A series of trunks and chests rained from the sky and fell on top of the bears. The twins side-eyed Goldilocks and Red, who stared with stunned faces. Looked on their faces. I don't know where they came from, but thankfully they were full of dainty coats and scarves and jewelry, Bob said. I wrapped myself in the clothing and was able to survive a cold night. That was all Red stuff that she dropped out of, or they had to drop out of the thing. Amazing, Red said through her teeth, losing her belongings. Hadn't been such a waste of time after all. She was still bitter about having to toss them overboard. Bob continued to animatedly recall his trip for the twins. I searched the land for a few more days with no luck. I found myself in a village on the coast and was able to trade the jewels and the clothing to a sailor in exchange for a small boat. I hoped I have more luck traveling by water. So I traveled from port to port, but still didn't find any trace of you or your mother. I sailed through the enormous sea storm and was tipped over in the water. I was just about to drown, or at least I thought. I was just about to drown when the sea witch's hideous anglerfish saved me, or at least I thought they were saving me. They brought me to her in her cave and stored me with the other animals that they kept to feed the sea witch's sharks. I noticed that the sea witch had a soft spot for jewelry, and I remembered the ring that I had, your mother's ring that I had in my pocket. I gave the ring to the sea witch in exchange for my freedom. I washed ashore and wandered around aimlessly for a couple of days before the trolls found me. And now, here I am, miraculously talking to you two. The twins were awestruck. They gawked at him with enormous eyes and wide open mouths. That's an incredible story, Bob, Alex said in an almost whisper. You went through all that for Mom? Connor asked. Of course, Bob said. I would walk to the ends of the world if I had to. Any world. But it's not just your mom, but for you as well. Alex and Connor were touched. Just until this moment, they hadn't realized how much Bob loved them. And it was slowly dawning on them just how much they loved him in return. Who might this brave man be? Froggy asked the twins. This is Dr. Bob, Connor said. He's our stepdad. Hearing the sound of those words made Bob smile from ear to ear. He finally found his family at last. A doctor, thank goodness, Red said, interrupting the sentimental moment. She showed him the scratch on her face. On a scale of temporary to permanent, how bad is this? Doctor, will I have to include it on my official portraits? She braced herself for the worst. Bob wasn't sure how to respond. I'd say it'll be gone in a day or so, Bob said. And then, from the look of the 4 adults surrounding the twins, so who's in your entourage, guys? Oh, sorry, Bob, Alex said. This is Jack, Goldilocks, Froggy, and Red. Queen Red Riding Hood of the Red Riding Hood Kingdom, Red added. Bob gave them a friendly nod. Pleasure, he said. Have either of you located your mother yet? The twins shook their head. She was kidnapped by an enchantress, Alex was telling him regretfully. But we still don't know where she is. The enchantress? Bob asked. The one everyone is talking about? Connor nodded with a heavy head. Unfortunately, he said. Bob started pacing. He looked just as worried as the twins had when they first discovered the news.